In this video, we are going to discuss the different classification of banks. A rigid classification of banks is not possible, but it is necessary to have some sort of classification. Like any other sector, there is some specialization in the field of banking also. Hence, some sort of classification is quite necessary to understand the nature and functions of different types of banks that are operating in a country. Therefore, on the basis of functions, banks are classified into six categories as commercial banks, industrial banks, agricultural banks, exchange banks, savings banks, and central banks. The most important category is commercial banks. The commercial banks are also called deposit banks. They accept deposits from the public and lend mainly to the commerce for short periods. As they finance mainly commerce, they are called commercial banks. And they are also known as deposit banks because they accept deposits from the public and lend for short periods. So, these are the features of a commercial bank. Now, coming to the industrial banks, they are also called investment banks. Industrial banks provide fixed capital or the long term and medium term finance to the industries. They are called industrial banks because they finance industries, and they are called investment banks because they invest their funds in subscribing to the shares and debentures of industrial concerns. That is the peculiarity of industrial banks. The next type is agricultural banks. They are the banks which provide finance to agriculture. Agricultural banks are found in many countries like India, England, Germany, France, USA, etc. In most of the countries, agricultural banks are organized on cooperative basis. In India also, the agricultural banks are organized on cooperative basis. The agricultural banks in India are of two types: agricultural cooperative banks and land development banks, or it is also called land mortgage banks. The agricultural cooperative banks provide short term finance to the agriculture for the purchase of fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, and for the payment of wages. For these purposes, the agricultural cooperative bank provides short-term finance. And the land development banks, they provide long-term finance to the farmers. And that is for the purchase of agricultural machinery, installation of pump sets, construction of irrigation works, making improvement on the lands, repayment of old debts, etc. The next type of bank is exchange bank. These are the banks that finance mainly the foreign exchange business. As they finance the foreign exchange business of a country, they are called exchange banks. Special exchange banks are found only in some countries. In the other countries, commercial banks themselves perform the exchange business. And in India, the major part of the foreign exchange business is done by the foreign exchange banks. A small portion of the India's foreign exchange business is done by Indian commercial banks. Now, coming to the savings bank, these are the special banks that specialize in the mobilization of small savings of the middle and low income groups. As they are concerned with the mobilization of small savings, they are called savings banks. The savings banks are not found in many countries. They are only found in countries like USA, Canada, etc. And in most of the countries, savings bank business is done by the commercial banks and post offices. The last category is central banks. A central bank is the highest banking and the highest monetary institution of a country. It is the leader of all other banking and monetary institutions found in a country. As it occupies a central position in the banking structure of a country, it is called central bank. And it works for the promotion of the monetary and economic stability of the country. It is not like other banks. It does not work for profits. It operates under state control. So, these are the different classifications of banks based on their functions. Thank you for watching this video. For more videos, subscribe the channel.